In this episode, we're going to speak with Sam Tilakasiri, successful engineer and program manager at Rolls-Royce, and Sam's going to give us 4 action items that he takes to support his engineering team, making them better professionals and him a better manager. This is exactly what engineering managers need to do to become great. Let's jump right in. All right, now I'm excited to welcome our guest for today, Sam Tilakasiri. Sam has had a decade of experience in the aerospace industry as an engineer and a program manager at Rolls-Royce. And Sam, welcome to the Engineering Career Coach podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be on here.
So, Sam, before we jump in here, this is a series that we're kind of focused on around what makes great engineering managers. And at EMI, through our research, we've identified that one key driver is a manager that supports his or her team's professional development is often seen as a great manager and can get really good results. So we're going to dive into that with you, Sam. But before we do that, just give our listeners a little bit about your background and what you're focused on now. You've worked in different countries. You've worked, I believe you're based right now in the UK, but talk a little bit for our listeners about your experience.
Sure, yeah. So, I've been, as you've just mentioned, I've been working in the aerospace industry for about 10 years or so. I started as a mechanical engineer. That was where I did my studies. And immediately after studying, I joined my company, and I've moved around quite a lot. Really, I've done a lot of kind of graduate placements to begin with, and then I moved into a number of different roles, mostly aligned within the area of either program management or engineering through verification. So that's where I've kind of built my experience, and I found always in each role that there's been people helping me through and helping me offer guidance. And I'd like to think that the guidance I'm giving today is thanks to the guidance I've been given that's seen me through my career so far. And I think it's really important to keep in mind whilst you're progressing your engineering career, you've always got to think about what is the best ways to develop yourself and also to develop others as you progress.
And so that mentality, Sam, sounds like it came to you just because of your own experience. Like maybe you had someone that really helped you or some managers that have helped you along. Is that how you kind of became interested in this component of management?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think throughout my professional career, the coaching I've been given and the guidance to achieving my goals in my career has been really good, and it's something that I look to share with other engineers and looking to develop themselves.
All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive in here. And Sam kind of reached out to me when I put out a request on LinkedIn, just looking for, managers that are really focused on supporting their team. And Sam actually sent me a list of actions that he takes, which is great because we'd love to make the podcast as actionable as possible. And so we're going to walk through these actions, and I'm going to let Sam talk a little bit about each one of them. And Sam, the first one that you listed was start by listening to the team member. Listen to what their ambitions are, what experience they have. And with this, you can start to form a picture of what their career goals are, and you try to put yourself in their shoes. So talk about that one a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So I think as with any situation in life, one of the most important first steps is listening. So you can always kind of put on your own opinions against what someone should do, but you never have a really good picture until you understand an individual. So listening is really important first step, and really getting a bit of a drilling into the detail of what they've done, what they really enjoy, and that's really a good way to really get to know anyone and understand what really motivates them. And as I say, put yourself in that person's shoes. It's always difficult to understand exactly what you want to do in life and in a career. So understanding a bit about the circumstances and what they enjoy is a really useful first step before you start offering any guidance.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And the one thing that you kind of said there was, you can really start to put together a picture of what their career goals are. And, the best way that you can help someone develop in their careers and in their professional life is to understand really where they want to go. Because then you can provide that guidance to them, or you can put them in situations that can move them towards their goals. And I mean, Sam said it best. I mean, the best way to know what someone wants is to ask them and listen to them, as opposed to just, guessing and thinking that just because you're the manager, you maybe what's right. I mean, again, a lot of this stuff, I see a lot of analogies in terms of parenting. Like, so a lot of times parents, they think they could just tell their kids what the best thing to do is, but sometimes, believe it or not, you got to ask the kid, like, what do you need? Where do you feel you need to work on? So that's a really good place to start. All right, the next one, Sam, that you listed was identify suitable opportunities for them to build new competencies. Focus on what they want, any weaknesses or development needs, challenge people beyond their comfort zones.
Sure, yeah. I think that's again kind of the next important step. Really, so once you've formed a picture of where the individual is, you've got to understand really where the areas they need to develop are. So looking at their experience and their strengths, you can kind of understand, what are people really good at already, and what do people need to get better at in order to enable them to reach their career goals. And I think a lot of people sometimes are reluctant to go beyond their comfort zone because it's something that's uncomfortable by nature. But it's a really good way to make sure an individual is really performing at their most potential. Because when you stay in the area that you're most used to, you're naturally less likely to be creative, innovative, thinking differently. So I think once you've got the idea of where an individual could develop new strengths and new skills, it's important to try and make that happen. And that may not always be in the same team that you're managing them in with. So you've got to be open to maybe to moving someone elsewhere if it's for the benefit of their career.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like a progression, first listening to them, then, asking them about some specific challenges or weaknesses. And I guess one kind of follow-up question on that point, Sam, would be, I think it's a great thing, to sit down with someone and maybe ask them what they want to work on, what are their weaknesses, how can you help them? How can someone be comfortable enough, talking to their manager about their weaknesses? I mean, I could see people think like, I don't really want to talk about my weaknesses. I don't want to let my manager know that I have a weakness. But I would imagine that just would have to do with kind of like your relationship with that person and make them comfortable enough. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to make people feel at ease when they talk to you. So one good way to do that is to get to know them in a sociable environment outside of work, so that you're not confined by the environment of work where it may be a bit more time pressured or difficult to open up. So really getting to know someone is important. Trying to get to understand a bit more about them personally, what they enjoy, hobbies outside of work, things like that. Just a good way to get people to open up. And I think by nature, the best way to get to understand weaknesses is by being open, and maybe even opening up some of the weaknesses you've got yourself. So people are the most open to telling you about themselves when the person that they're speaking to has also told something that maybe puts them in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I can see how that could be very helpful. So, a couple of points there. That one of them that Sam suggested is something that we've heard kind of in many of our podcast interviews is when managers get to know their team members on more of a personal level, it just makes these conversations much easier. And it helps with kind of the project side of things because you know them better personally. They'll open up on certain things. And that second point, I think also is really important. I mean, if you approach a conversation and say, I really want to focus on helping you with your development. I know for me in the past, I struggled quite a bit with public speaking, but I really focused on it. My manager helped me and I become better at it. As Sam said, when you show that you have a weakness, and you worked on it, they're going to be maybe more open to sharing, their weakness. And I do think that's important because sometimes, managers might come off as, I don't really have any weaknesses and I'm quote unquote perfect. And, but what are your weaknesses? So that's a good way for sure to kind of set that up and to put them at ease. All right, Sam, the next one that you identified was to follow up on a regular basis. It's easy for people to forget. So gentle reminders to keep the team motivated to really develop themselves can be very important.
Yes. So I think sometimes, in my own career and witnessing other people's career, sometimes you forget to take the time to remind yourself the things you need to do to develop. So if you're self-driven, it can happen that you make sure that you follow up on the things that you want to develop. But a lot of people, when they're very busy in particular, struggle to find the time to fit in the extra training course or to go and do the extra on-roll skill that they need to develop because they're just too busy to do it. So the important thing is really just to keep reminding people that once they've got an idea of what they need to do to develop themselves, that they're actively following it up. They're not letting it procrastinate and drag on, because as soon as that happens, it can kind of stall their progression. And sometimes that may be okay, but it's just got to be aligned with their career aspirations so that they don't end up disappointed.
All right, Sam. And the last point that you identified was to keep listening, right? Their career goals will change as, they evolve in their career and in their lives. Not everyone wants to keep progressing. And some people, they might want to ease off and kind of reduce some of their responsibilities. You really don't want to push people to develop if they don't want to. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I think, it's really just going back to step one, really, to keep listening to the people that you're trying to coach and advise. As I say, as life goes by, maybe you've got other commitments in life. You're planning for retirement or whatever. You've got to kind of tailor the kind of career conversation to the situation at hand. It could be that someone is kind of really keen to progress and they've got a goal that they want to get to in terms of role or in terms of responsibility. So they've still got that appetite to progress. But likewise, you could get an individual that's, also kind of got to take care of a family at home, or they've got responsibilities outside of work that they need to attend to. That means they just want to kind of keep on the steady with their responsibilities, and they don't really want to try and push themselves a bit more because they think that would then compromise their other responsibilities at the time. And you've got to kind of work with that understanding to tailor the best kind of development for that individual.
That's great. And you can see that really what Sam's proposing is really kind of a process here that you can kind of walk through, and action items that you can take to, put an emphasis and put a focus on the development of your team. And we found it to be important. And obviously Sam's found it to be important and helpful in his career. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and wrap up with our Take Action Today segment. We're going to recap the points that Sam's listed, the action items that Sam listed, and we'll give you something specific that you can do immediately after this episode to kind of forward the action in your career to help your team. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Sam Tilakasiri. Sam has had a decade of experience in the aerospace industry as an engineer and program manager at Rolls-Royce. And today we're talking about the importance of supporting the development of your team members, which we've identified as a key driver as great engineering managers. And Sam has specifically given us 4 action items that he takes, and it's kind of a process or kind of a circle that loops around here. The first one was to listen to his team members to understand what they want, what their ambitions are, so he can support that. Secondly, was to identify suitable opportunities for them to grow and build new competencies. So Sam tries to understand what their weaknesses are, or what strengths they want to build. Thirdly, Sam follows up with them on a regular basis. I mean, everyone gets busy with their projects and their work, so Sam wants to make sure that they are focusing on themselves and ensures that he can continue to help them. And then lastly, kind of closing the loop, is to, again, listen on a continuous basis, because people's career goals change as their career changes and as they grow. So if you continue to listen, you keep that loop open to help them progress. So Sam, this seems like a really good kind of group of action items to take. So if our listeners out there are listening and they want to really put some emphasis and focus on developing their team, take us through maybe the best first step or the best thing that they can do after listening to this episode.
Sure. From my perspective, it's kind of 3 steps repeating, but I guess the most important step is the first step. Really, start by listening. Start by listening to the team. Listen to what they want. Listen to how they want to develop themselves, and really, as I say at the end of that first point, really put yourself in their shoes, because I think, especially if you're an engineer yourself and you're now a manager, you've obviously started off being early in your career as an engineer, and you'll probably have gone through the same thought processes as they have gone through. So you've got a bit of experience of what might be going through their mind. So put yourself in their shoes, listen to what they're saying, and then you can be in the best position to really advise on how to progress.
So Sam, if you have a team of like 5 people, maybe one of our listeners, let's say, for example, what they would want to do is kind of approach each one and say, I want to just sit down with you for a few minutes, or get on the phone with you for a few minutes and start to understand some of your career goals and like where you want to head in your career. Is that what you would recommend they do specifically?
Definitely, yeah. So I think depending on where you're working, I think that really goes down well, because it makes the employee feel and the colleague feel valued, because you're spending the time with them to get to know them better, to understand how they can improve themselves, and they'll really value that, because it shows that you're interested in them.
Awesome. And so if you're out there and you want to support your team better and really put an emphasis on their development, start by sitting down with each one of them, understanding what they want to do in their career. And it may have a really big impact on the day-to-day productivity that you see from them, the quality of the work they put out, because whenever someone's engaged in their career and they know that, their work and their career goals are kind of intertwined, it can make a big difference from my experience. So Sam Tilakasiri, thank you so much for spending some time with us here on the Engineering Career Coach podcast and for sharing some of your experiences. We really appreciate it.
Not to worry. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave your comments and or questions in the comments section below this video. Also, if you'd like to view the full show notes for this episode, visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org or see the link in the video description. There you will find the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during the episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering career endeavors.